Hey there, history students. I wanted to talk to you about how to complete this project. It's called Historiography. And I know you're probably getting to this project and thinking, what? This is huge and it's terrifying and I don't want to do it. And I sympathize, but I also want you to know that it's really not as terrifying as it seems. So first and foremost, I think you have to ask and understand, what is historiography? And historiography is simply the way that history has been written. So it's the study of the way we've understood history. Now, I know this sounds kind of silly, but how we understand history has changed a lot. And that's what your project is going to examine, is how have historians or researchers' perspectives on these topics changed over time. So this is an introduction into what historiography is and how you can write in a historiographical way, where you might consider time, how time has changed perspectives, just in general, how perspectives have changed, how the breadth of a topic has changed. So, you might talk about things like World War II, but you might talk about World War II in South America, which isn't usually included in the story of World War II, but it is an interesting perspective worth considering. You might consider the regional differences. Obvious example here is Northern versus Southern perspectives in the American Civil War. And of course, the approach. Do we talk about the Civil War from a Black woman's perspective? Do we talk about the Holocaust from a Mexican perspective? Like, these are different approaches that we can use when we talk about historiography. And then, of course, there are reasons why historiography changes, why the way we study history changes. So for this project, you're simply making an outline. So I don't want you to get here and think, I have this huge essay to write. You don't. This is just an outline. And then when you click here for examples and instructions, you end up on my teacher website, which says pretty much all the same stuff. And then these are your guidelines or potential topics. So pick one of these. These are things we've all learned about in this last unit here. I had a student do the history of capitalism, particularly in comparing this idea to capitalism in the United States and how we've been very, very for it, but particularly right around the Great Depression. There was a lot of blowback against capitalism, not just in the United States, but kind of globally. Capitalism takes a big hit around this period. And even today, especially with folks like the rise of Bernie Sanders, there is this kind of question of democratic socialism and what that means in relation to capitalism. So there's a lot you can say about these things. You might talk about the growth and change of nation states and how we now view them differently, and what nationalism means, and how that has changed, especially, again, looking at World War I type nationalism, World War II nationalism, and today. This view of European dominance, I think, is really interesting as well, because so much of what we learn here in the US is rooted in European history and why we don't talk about what's happening in China or Japan, which is particularly relevant today when we talk about China being the other major superpower in the world. Do we need to learn more about them? Should that perspective change? So there's a lot of things you can say about all of these. Probably the easiest way to start this project is to pick your topic and then write a research question. And a research question should be historiographical in nature. So for example, for pandemics of the world, you might ask, how has the way we handle pandemics changed over history? That's a historiographical question because it asks, how have things changed over the course of history? And that will allow you to create a thesis. Now, once you have your research question, your thesis is simply a debatable response to that question. So if we're going with this pandemics of the world thing, your thesis would be a response to that question. The way pandemics have been handled has changed because, or has changed in XYZ ways. If you scroll down to the bottom of this, you will have the example that you need here. Okay? So we're going to hop over to the example. Again, this has the outline of the assignment, and then when we keep going, we have the example. So you'll need to have a title for your essay. For this example, we're using Thomas Jefferson. the student name, the teacher name, the class, and the date it was written. You'll need to clearly state your thesis, so I don't need to know your research question, but your thesis does need to be present. In this case, the view of President Jefferson has changed through the years, mostly thanks to new evidence and emerging technology. That's a clear, debatable thesis, that views have changed, and here is why. Okay? And then you are just going to write a brief outline with a topic sentence. A topic sentence is like a mini thesis. It's saying this is where this paragraph is going. You'll need evidence, and I'm going to talk a little bit about evidence here in a minute. And then you need to explain how your evidence supports your topic sentence and thesis. Okay? And that's what you're going to do for 3 body paragraphs, and that's it. And then I want your sources. I want to talk to you now about sources. So first and foremost, your sources need to be academic and reliable. There will be no Wikipedias, there will be no ask.com, there will be none of that. If you want full points. They need to be academic in nature. Places like Smithsonian, places like National Geographic, organizations that are related to your research. So Thomas Jefferson lived at Monticello. Monticello is a research library now in addition to his home. So that's a reliable source because this is literally where they keep all the information on Jefferson. PBS is a great option as well. AskHistory.com, not a great source. So I've had a lot of students say, okay, so how do I find good research? And I'm about to show you something awesome. It is called Google Scholar. If you just Google Scholar, you'll get it. Google Scholar gives you links to research that will allow you to find reliable information. So if we're looking for how pandemics are handled, pandemics, look at all of this wonderful stuff. Pandemics in history. Awesome. And now I have all of these great journal articles about pandemics. And we can, oh, that's a book. So what this says, this is an article. Let's see if we can snag that. Shrimp pandemics. The Encyclopedia of Pandemics. So this is where you can find a lot of really great information. So let's see if we can click over the Applied Journal of Microbiology. So this is a reliable source. It gives us the website where we can access it and read it. And then all of this information here. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can find using just Google Scholar. So I really want to encourage you to use Google Scholar as a way to guide your research. If you're finding that you're having trouble finding reliable research, I want to talk to you about using Wikipedia. I was reading about Sam Houston. He's a pretty slick guy, in case you don't know. Pandemics. Ooh. Cool. So now we have all this information here about pandemics, and if we go all the way down to the bottom, they've got references. Use these references, guys, because look, oh, who? This keeps popping up. Who stands for the World Health Organization? I bet that's a reliable source if it keeps popping up. Go look at the World Health Organization. They're going to have information for you about pandemics. Okay? So use Wikipedia appropriately, cambridge.org. Anything that's usually .org, especially if it's a university name, is a good source. Don't be afraid to look at university websites. A lot of this project is showing that you know how to do effective research, showing that you know how to write a thesis, and that you understand the relationship between a thesis and the body paragraph, okay? Including having a clear topic sentence. If you need help with this project, please let me know. I will happily schedule some time for us to work on this together. I promise it's not as scary as it looks, and that once you get into the meat of it, it's pretty straightforward. The research is probably the hardest part. If you need help developing a topic sentence, thesis, etc., give me a holler. Good luck, and I'll talk to you later.